Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told Us podcast.
Right.
Today we're diving deep
Yeah.
into the life and music
Yeah.
of the one and only
Yes.
Elvis Presley,
Oh, Elvis.
the king of rock and roll.
The king.
And now
Yeah.
your expertise on Elvis is amazing.
Well, thank you.
I've
So to start,
I've been a fan for a very long time.
yeah, let's go back to the beginning, to his
Yeah.
roots.
Absolutely.
I mean, can you paint a picture for us
Sure.
of what kind of world Elvis was born into?
Yeah, so we're talking Tupelo, Mississippi,
Okay.
1935.
Right?
Very, very humble beginnings.
Humble.
Yes, very small town.
Mhm.
Dirt roads.
Yeah.
And very much a world steeped in gospel music,
Mhm.
country music, and the blues.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to imagine this
Yeah.
larger-than-life figure
Got
coming
it.
from such a rural
Yeah.
background.
But it really shaped him.
Right.
It's like all those influences just kind of,
They all came together.
yeah.
And you can really hear it in his music.
Absolutely.
His family was very religious.
Right.
They attended the Assembly of God Church,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where he was first exposed to gospel music.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that gospel influence,
Yes.
it really stayed with him
Absolutely, it did.
throughout his career.
You know?
You can hear it in so many of his songs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's there in the early stuff,
Right.
and it's there even in his later recordings.
Right.
That kind of
The
passion.
passion and like the
Yes.
the vocal delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you also have the country music influence,
Right.
which was everywhere in Mississippi at the time.
Yeah, and the blues.
The blues.
Yeah.
He lived not too far from Beale Street in
Right.
Memphis.
Right.
So he was exposed to that sound as well.
Hmm.
The raw energy and emotion of artists like
Right.
B.B. King,
Uh-huh.
Howlin' Wolf.
It's like all these ingredients were kind of simmering in
Exactly.
this melting pot.
Yeah, and that's what makes him so unique.
Right. He wasn't just a rock and roll singer.
No.
He was this fusion of all these different...
There's a blend.
Yeah.
A blend of these American musical traditions.
Right. I got to ask you about something I found really interesting.
Sure.
Did Elvis actually fail music class in school?
He did.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, the king flunking music?
I know.
That's wild.
Right.
How does that even happen?
Well, it just goes to show
Mm-hmm.
that Elvis's musical talent
Yeah.
wasn't about formal training. He
Right.
couldn't read music.
Uh,
He learned by ear,
yeah.
by feeling.
Absorbing, by listening. So he was more of a
Yeah.
natural talent.
Yeah, exactly. A natural talent.
Yeah.
A musical sponge, you could say.
So we've got this young Elvis
Right.
soaking up all these different musical styles.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
in 1953, he walks into Sun Records
Sun Records.
and meets Sam Phillips,
Yeah.
a producer who's looking for something new.
Oh, yeah.
And bam,
Yeah.
they record this song.
He was searching for a white singer
Right.
who could sing with the feel of a black artist.
And he finds it in Elvis.
He did.
Yeah.
That's right.
Have you ever heard that original recording?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just
Many times.
raw energy.
It's just raw.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
You can hear all those influences,
Mhm.
the gospel, the country, the blues,
All their
all blended together
yeah,
in this
in this new
new and exciting sound.
Yeah,
And
and it took off like wildfire.
it did.
Yeah,
It changed music forever.
it did.
But it wasn't just the music,
No, it was the way he moved,
the way he moved.
the way he performed,
Yeah.
his stage presence.
It was electrifying.
It was electrifying.
Controversial.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
especially those hip movements,
Right.
those gyrations.
People had never seen anything like it.
They hadn't.
He was breaking all the rules.
He was a rebel.
Yeah.
He was challenging the norms.
And for a lot of people,
Yeah,
especially the younger generation,
he's just to the young folk.
it was liberating,
Yeah.
exciting,
Uh-huh.
and maybe a little dangerous.
Right.
And that's what made him a star,
Absolutely.
a true icon.
An icon.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking of those early performances,
Right.
his appearance on the Milton Berle Show in 1956,
Oh, yeah.
that really caused a stir.
It did.
His performance of Hound Dog
Mhm.
was just
Oh, yeah.
wild.
Wild.
I mean, critics were appalled.
They were clutching their pearls.
They called it vulgar,
Yes.
suggestive.
They did.
Even the New York Times
Yes.
compared his moves to a burlesque dancer.
I know.
But you know what?
What?
That controversy
Mm-hmm.
only made him more popular.
It did. It just fueled the fire.
It fueled the fire.
It did.
He became this symbol of youthful rebellion, defiance.
Yeah.
And that's what made him so appealing
That's right.
to a generation
Yeah.
that was ready to break free.
Ready to shake things up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got Elvis now,
Yeah.
this national sensation,
Yeah.
a lightning rod for both adoration
Mm-hmm.
and outrage.
Right.
But his music is topping the chart.
Well, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He releases his debut album,
Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley,
A classic.
and it just explodes.
It took the world by storm.
And that's where we'll leave it for now.
Okay.
But make sure you stay tuned
Yes.
because we're just getting started
we are
on our deep dive into the life and
yeah.
music of Elvis Presley,
the king.
the king.
Yeah. So Elvis is this huge
That's
star.
huge.
Yeah.
And then he gets drafted.
Right into the army.
The Army.
Yeah.
Elvis Presley in the Army.
Can you imagine?
It's hard to even picture,
I know, right?
like the headlines.
Oh, yeah. It was huge news.
It must have been crazy.
Yep.
This global superstar
Yeah.
trading in his blue suede shoes
Right.
for Army boots.
It was a big deal for his fans, too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, 2 years away from music,
Yeah.
from performing.
But you know what's amazing?
What's that?
His fans stuck with him.
They did. They were loyal.
They waited for his return.
And when he came back,
When he came back,
things were different.
different how?
He'd matured.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was more seasoned,
Yeah.
more experienced.
He was no longer that
right.
raw, rebellious kid.
He'd grown up.
He'd seen the world.
Yeah, he'd served his country.
And his music reflected that.
It did.
Right.
It was more sophisticated,
Yeah.
more nuanced.
And then Hollywood came calling
Hollywood.
Elvis the movie star.
It was a natural progression.
It was.
I mean, he was charismatic,
yeah.
good looking,
And he could sing.
and he could sing.
And those movies,
Yeah.
I mean, some of them
Oh, I know.
were a little cheesy,
Some of them were pretty formulaic.
but they were huge hits.
They were.
And the soundtracks,
The soundtracks.
Blue Hawaii,
Viva Las Vegas.
Jailhouse Rock,
So many classics.
classics.
Yeah.
And those songs,
Yeah.
I mean, Can't Help Falling in Love,
Oh, yeah.
The Turn Descender,
Timeless.
they're still so popular today.
Like,
You
right?
hear them on the radio,
Uh-huh.
and you're instantly transported back
I know.
to that era.
Like a time machine.
But even as he was making movies,
Yeah.
his music continued to evolve.
It did.
In the mid-'60s,
Right.
he really started to explore his gospel roots.
Oh, yeah.
Albums like His Hand in Mine,
Mhm.
How Great Thou Art,
Those are some of my favorites.
they're amazing.
Yeah.
You can hear the passion,
Uh-huh.
the depth of feeling.
That's all soul.
It's-
all there.
It's like that gospel music. It was always a part of him.
He was in his DNA.
Yeah.
It was his foundation.
But by the late 60s,
Right.
his career,
Yeah.
it was kind of at a crossroads.
It was.
The movie formula was getting stale.
Mhm.
The music scene was changing.
It was time of transition.
And then
No, the time to.
the 68 comeback special.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a rebirth,
It was
a
famous.
reawakening
It was back.
back to his roots.
Raw energy.
That black leather suit,
Yeah.
the guitar.
It was electric.
It was like Elvis was saying,
Yeah.
hey, world,
I'm still here.
I'm still the king.
And then Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Elvis in Vegas.
Iconic.
It doesn't get any bigger than that.
Those shows,
Yeah.
the jumpsuits,
Oh, I
the
see.
energy.
What a spectacle.
It was a phenomenon.
It was.
And he was at the top of his game.
At the top.
But behind the scenes,
Yeah.
there were struggles.
There were.
His marriage to Priscilla was falling apart.
It was a difficult time.
The pressures of fame were taking their toll.
The constant scrutiny.
The demands of his career.
It all added up.
And he started to rely on prescription drugs.
Yeah.
It's a sad story.
It is.
But it's a reminder
Mm-hmm.
that even the king was human
Yeah.
with his own flaws
And then struggles.
and vulnerability.
That's right. It's a reminder that even behind the persona, the icon, there was a real person struggling,
Yeah.
dealing with real challenges.
Yeah. It's a story that
Mm-hmm.
sadly has a tragic ending.
It does.
August 16th, 1977,
Yeah.
the world lost a legend.
The king was gone.
Elvis Presley was only 42 years old.
Far too young.
It's hard to even grasp the impact of his death.
I know.
I mean,
It's shock.
the outpouring of grief
Yeah.
from around the world.
People were devastated.
It was like a part of our collective soul
It really was.
had just vanished. Elvis wasn't just a singer.
No.
He was a cultural phenomenon,
Your
a
icon.
symbol of an era.
A voice for a generation.
He broke down musical barriers.
Absolutely.
He challenged social norms.
He pushed boundaries.
And he sparked conversations
Yeah.
about race, identity.
And
His legacy is so complex.
it is.
And it continues to evolve.
It does.
You know, we talk about those musical barriers he broke.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that Elvis grew up immersed in black music.
That's right.
And he never shied away from acknowledging those influences.
He embraced them.
He did.
He brought those sounds to a wider audience,
Yeah.
a predominantly white audience.
And in doing so,
Yeah,
he helped pave the way
he did.
for greater acceptance
I
and
know.
appreciation
Yeah.
of black artists.
Think about artists like Little Richard,
Yeah.
Chuck Berry,
Pioneers of rock and roll.
true innovators.
But they faced so many obstacles.
Yeah, because of their race.
Exactly.
Elvis's success helped open doors for them.
Yeah.
And for countless other black musicians.
His embrace of those musical roots
Right.
was really significant.
It was.
He challenged the racial boundaries of
Yeah.
the music industry.
At a time when it was really needed.
Absolutely.
His impact in that regard.
It's undeniable.
So we've explored his humble beginnings, his meteoric rise, the highs,
The lows,
the music, the movies,
controversies.
the triumphs and the tragedies.
It's quite a story.
What does it all mean?
That's the question, isn't
What
it?
can we learn from Elvis Presley, the man and the myth?
I think his story reminds us of the power of authenticity,
Yeah.
of following your passion.
Even when it challenges the norms.
Absolutely.
He didn't fit into any neat little box.
He defied expectations.
He created something entirely new.
He was one of a kind.
And despite the fame,
The fortune.
the pressures, he never lost sight
No, he didn't.
of his love for music.
Music was his lifeblood.
It was his way of connecting with the world.
And with himself.
And that connection,
Right.
that ability to touch people's hearts through music,
Yeah.
that's what defines his legacy.
It's what makes him timeless.
Elvis Presley left an indelible mark. Oh, yeah.
On the world.
He did.
And his music continues to inspire,
Absolutely.
to entertain.
And to challenge us.
He remains the king,
The king of rock and roll.
a symbol of rock and roll's enduring power.
And his story is far from over.
That's right.
It continues to be told
And retold.
and reinterpreted.
Thank you for joining us
Yes, thank you.
for this deep dive into the life and legacy of Elvis Presley.
The king.
We'll see you next time
See them.
for another captivating journey.
We're here on Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast,
Don't forget to subscribe
so you don't miss out.
on our next deep dive.